Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, and I thought today we would look at a couple issues that chainsaws have in general. There are They're a two-stroke engine. That means you have to have a mix. About everyone that I know of out there might be a few select, but they're all 50 to 1. And you have to use the right oil to mix with your gas. Now, what we use here at the shop is I buy the synthetic. And it just gives me an added feeling of it's going to be good. It's going to be good for lubrication. You know, harder to break down. And I would highly recommend it. Now, I'm telling you guys out there that, and I'm the same way, is that when you're mixing that, don't mix it out very far. Keep it short term and use premium fuel only. Don't use the ethanol. Premium non-ethanol. So if you're like me, you end up mixing it a little heavier than need be. And that's good in a way, because one, you know, you're lubricating the cylinder, and two, it'll keep the black flies and punkies off you when you're cutting firewood. But it also will cause your saw to become bogged down. And what do I mean by bogged down? I mean, in your exhaust on your chainsaw, there's a spark arrestor with a screen underneath it, and I'll show it to you in this video. And a lot of times that will become partially and even plugged. And if it can't exhaust, it's just as bad as not getting enough air through the air breather. It's not going to be able to rev up. It will quit because it's pushing against solid. A lot of times you can take that screen out, scrub it up, do the spark arrestor at the same time. Check inside the cylinder if it's full of crud where it's plugged up, because this is over time. Take the piston all the way up so that you're seeing the piston, so you're not leaving an opening on top or bottom. Clean it out, keep it coming out, shake it upside down so you can get it so it's not going into the cylinder wall or into the cylinder itself to cause you more problems. Alright, let's get started with the video. Turn the video. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on a steel 170. Customer brought it in, said that when you went into the wood, firewood, it would bog right down and no power. So we're going to see if we can't step by step through this. First thing first, eye protection. It's good to have steel-toed boots. And then you really need to have a scabbard put on so that chain is sharp and it will cut you. If you don't have one of these, then you're going to have to be wearing leather gloves the whole time you're working around it. But you should have one of these already. If not, pick one up, because they are good to keep from hurting someone, even if you put it in the back of your truck or in the back of your trailer, so somebody doesn't reach in and get caught by it. Alright, so I can tell you what I've done so far. I have pulled the plug, checked the compression, and I'm getting 118 to 120, which is well within the range. I went ahead and I changed the plug anyways, and drained all the fuel. You know my policy when it comes to fuel: get rid of it so you know what you got. Customer tells you, oh, I just bought that yesterday. I don't care. I want to go with what I know, and that is our own fuel. So I went ahead and did that, and it would start, but it did. It was boggy, and a lot of times the culprit is right here. Let me see if I can zoom in. I'm going to just, on this, you got the exhaust. And there's a screen, spark arrestor screen, underneath this. And sometimes that becomes plugged. So simply just take off these two. A lot of times, don't worry, if the nut doesn't thread out the bolt and the whole thing threads out, that's fine. You're no big deal. Alright, so I've taken the two bolts out, and in behind, you can take the whole muffler right out. Let's take the whole muffler right off. Alright, so here is where it exhausts, and this here is a spark arrestor, and it keeps it from shooting sparks out that could ignite something. Somebody has already taken the screen out of it. So they've had problems with this in the past and probably watched a YouTube video on the culprit. But we know that's not the culprit. And if you look in there, let me see if I can get this camera set up. Come on. If you look in there, you'll see that it's not that bad. I've seen them a whole lot worse where they couldn't even breathe. So that's the other thing to check. If you find that it has a lot of buildup, just bring your piston up so it can't get into there and clean this out and then just blow it out. Well, usually when your chainsaw bogs down like that, it's your spark arrestor is plugged or your exhaust port is plugged and it can't breathe. Now, be careful when you're loosening and tightening these. You don't want to, I talked to you about how I have my DeWalt impact. You do not want to use that on that. They need to be snugged, but I could even snap it with my 3/8 drive. Alright, so that's clear, but that's a good place to check. So after doing all the checks on it, what did I find out? This, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but all we can figure is at one time or another, he had this out in the sun and something leaning on it. Because what ended up happening is here on the trigger, this was flexing. So if you were running it like this, it didn't have any power. But if you turned it on its side, you were pulling and it would rev right up. And we never seen this before at this shop. And like I say, all we could figure is that it must have been out in the hot sun with something leaning on it and it warped it. So what we're going to try doing with this is we have a twist tie. And we've got her tight. And we're going to let her sit and see if she'll mold come back. Because the throttle rod was lengthening and shortening depending on the pressure on the handle itself. If this doesn't work, the only other option is he's going to have to buy a whole new handle assembly that comes up into here. And spend the time doing it. So again, we want to work safely. Glasses. If you're going to be running this, hearing protection, safety boots. Put the scabbard on so that you're not exposing the teeth to where you can get your hand cut. Golden rule. Fuel, spark, air, and compression. Normally how I do it, I start with compression. If I got compression, then I'll start working my way out. Do I have fire? And if I have compression and fire, then I go to the next. Fuel. I put in new fuel that I know is good. Now I've had customers tell me that it was new fuel, but new fuel that he poured into it, but it was sitting in a can for the last year and a half and it was ethanol fuel. And what do we know about ethanol? Ethanol draws moisture. And ethanol and gas and water will separate. Your gas will stay on top, your ethanol in the middle, and your water on the bottom. Even if you shake it up at that point, with it sitting for a while, that water's still in there. And it will act doggy. It'll spit and sputter and carry on. I don't buy our fuel out that far. You're talking a week and a half maybe at the most that I'm changing the fuel to brand new fuel. And I use the premium fuel here, and I still do it that way, changing it often, because Culprit, 70 to 80% of the repairs that come to this, part of it is responsible is fuel. It's bad fuel. It's been sitting around too long, and it's done something to the system. So I hope you learned something today. I mean, with that spark arrestor, whoever took it out probably should have cleaned it and put it back in. But that's totally up to them. With this, it ended up being the handle, which I've never seen before. And if this trick doesn't work, we're going to have to order them a new handle or tell them it's not worth putting the money into. All right, on that note, we'll catch you on the next video.